Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are really excited, and I personally am very excited for this conversation today and for my very special guest that I will introduce in a second. But just a couple of logistics. We are recording this session, so we'll send that recording out afterward, probably today or tomorrow, Danielle, is that right? And I've called on her. She
That
wasn't.
is right. I'm sorry. Somebody said their kids were starting school tomorrow, and I totally got
Oh my
distracted.
gosh, on a Thursday? That's weird. That's
Sorry.
possible.
Go ahead. Let's keep
Okay, we
going.
digress. I lost my train of thought. Oh,
I'm
right.
going to send out the recording within the next 24 hours, and it'll come from either myself or Aaron.
Perfect. Thank you. And as always, we would love to make this a conversation. We love to learn as much from you as we hope that we are able to information we'll be able to give back. So anytime you have a question, a comment, you want to share some thoughts, please put that in the chat. I believe the chat still defaults to host and panelists. So if you want to share with everyone in the audience, just change that to everybody, and then everyone can see and interact with your content. With that, we would love to know who we have with us today. So I'm going to introduce us in a second, but great to know, where you're coming from, what brought you here today. If there's something specific that's on your mind and you hope that we talk about, please let us know. We will weave that into the conversation as best that we can. I am Katie Kapler. I am co-founder and CEO of Inscribe. So we are helping to sponsor this conversation today. I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado, where it's going to be about 100 degrees this morning. I am joined today by my colleague Danielle Bonner, who is going to help moderate the conversation today. So she's keeping an eye on the chat. She'll make sure if there's questions in there that we're getting to them. And as always, she knows she is welcome to interrupt us at any time. And my extra special guest, Sam Nikolai, Director of DSI Enterprise at the University of North Texas. Sam, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to talk with you today. This is going to be such a fun conversation.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Just a quick word, and we are going to be able to take a look in a little bit about how UNT has implemented Inscribe. But if you're not familiar, Inscribe is a virtual community platform. So we partner with institutions to create spaces, virtual spaces, where students can connect with peers, sometimes with faculty or staff, and just provide a very flexible on-demand location for those conversations, to get answers, to seek advice, and to build relationships. And we really lean into helping, peer-to-peer support and helping students really connect with and meet each other as part of that process. We like to lead off with a little bit of why is it important to have this conversation today? And as I was reflecting on this while we were putting the deck together, one of the things that reminded me is that, so we're going to talk a lot about retention and persistence today. And I know that that continues to be something that is highly top of mind for many of us, especially when it comes to our most vulnerable students and those that we really want to see succeed. And I think when we think about improving student success, it can feel like a very overwhelming task. There's so many reasons that a student might not stay in their learning, or something might trip them up and cause them to leave. And most schools, and you're all the ones here as well, often take a very multimodal approach to that, right? There's no silver bullet to help all students succeed. But what I hope that you take away from the conversation today is that virtual communities offer a very simple, sort of easy to implement, easy to maintain solution that can touch on many of the reasons that students leave. And I always like to say a simple solution that can have an outsized impact on your persistence and student success metrics. So it's one tool in the tool belt, but it can be a very powerful tool that doesn't require a tremendous amount of upheaval and work from the institution side. So keep that in mind. And certainly if you have questions about that, let's ask them along the way. But that is one thing I would hope that everyone just kind of keeps in mind here. All right.
Oh, there is a question in the chat.
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, we're coming in hot. One question I have is, how do you measure persistence and retention at scale for our adult undergraduate students whose attendance patterns differ vastly from that traditional age student?
Do you have thoughts about that, Sam?
Yeah, so this is definitely something that we've talked about a lot. You know, adult learners are looking for flexibility in their programs. And that means that, if one semester they've got a kiddo that is playing travel soccer and they can't take classes that semester because they're traveling all over the country to watch their kid play soccer, then they need to take that time off and then be able to come back. And so I would say that in terms of measuring persistence, we kind of do it with a little asterisk next to it, right? Because we know that some of our student population is going to just flow in and out of our degree programs. We have 8-week terms in our degree program as well, the at-scale bachelor degree programs that we've got. And so with that, we have students who will take classes in 8-week 2, but not 8-week 1, because 8-week 1, like all of you, our conversation earlier, their kids are starting school. They can't start school at the same time as their kids are starting school because that's just chaos. So they want to start in October. And, we see a lot of those things. And so when we're measuring our persistence and retention numbers, I've got an amazing data analyst on our team who spends a lot of time looking at our student population and how they're behaving. And she's done a great job at, kind of anticipating what that looks like, and the, small percentage of transients, I guess, that we'll have in any given term.
Yeah. Like the goal can't be 100% because that's not realistic for the population you serve, but maybe looking at the delta and I see Marley posted something in the chat from OSU about some work that they've done in that space as well. So thanks for offering up your information as well. But it's a great question and a wonderful way to lead off, right? To know that once again, this is not black and white. It's not, a super, there's art form to this that we have to understand and think about, and especially when we're helping to serve this population of learners. With that, Sam, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the University of North Texas, in case some people are not familiar? I'm guessing most people are, but give us a little rundown.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we are the Mean Green. We are located in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which I heard recently is now at 10 million people, which is just bananas. We are a Tier 1 research university. We are a public university. We are part of a 3-campus system with our Health Science Center in Fort Worth and our urban campus in South Dallas. We currently have about 47,000 students at our main campus located here in Denton, and that includes a satellite campus in Frisco, which is one of the fastest growing areas in the country right now. We're an HSI, MSI institution. We have 114 bachelor's degrees, 97 master's degrees, and 39 doctoral degrees. And within all of that, we've got many programs that are ranked. Our College of Business is AACSB accredited. We are working to build our online portfolio of degrees, but we do have about 40 online degree programs right now, and that is growing. And so it is important for us to think about how we're serving the online student and how we're giving them a space to exist within the Mean Green community.
Wonderful introduction. And big institution, very diverse, serving a lot of different students and a lot of different needs. So that can make for a somewhat complicated, student support landscape. But you guys are doing it really well. So tell us a little bit about some of your successes here.
Yeah, so we've got 106 degree programs ranked in the nation's top 100, which is really great for us in terms of, one of the things that when I started here 5 years ago, I heard a lot was we're the biggest university nobody's ever heard of. And I think we can't say that all the time anymore, because we are kind of emerging as a leader in some really great areas. Our basketball team won the NIT tournament last year, which was huge for us. So, we're moving up the ranks as a Tier 1 research university. So for us, we are really kind of growing our footprint. And who knows about UNT? We've been kind of a regional commuter school in our history, but that's definitely changing as we grow our online population. We're growing our adult learner population and looking at ways to diversify what we're already doing on the ground here in Denton.
That's awesome. So again, we're sort of saying really diverse, you're growing in all these really new and innovative ways. So that can create some complexity. Talk to us just a
Yeah.
little bit about some of the challenges you felt like you were facing that brought you to come talk to us.
Absolutely. So in 2020, we launched a Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences degree with Coursera. The goal of this degree was to have hundreds, if not thousands, of students. We have grown that degree. We're now just over 1,000 students. And what we have found is that so many of the adult learners that come into this completion degree are feeling such intense fears around imposter syndrome. And I haven't been a student since the 80s or the 90s, and how can I step into um, a degree program when I'm just so not confident in my skills as a student? And so what we've found is when we first launched, a missing component was that connection piece. How do we get these students to connect with one another so that when they have those moments of, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this, they have someone they can reach out to in the program who can speak directly to the challenges they're facing? There was a disconnection between our online learners and the university as a whole. Not even just one another, student to student, but also student to faculty, student to university. When it came to navigating doing business with the university, paying their bill, registering for classes, getting financial aid, all of that was harder because they couldn't just walk over to the student union and have a conversation with our director of financial aid to figure out what forms they need to fill out to get summer aid. So with all of that, we had to kind of start thinking outside of the box of how can we provide an not totally equal experience, obviously, but an equitable experience for our online learners, where they're getting the information they need to be able to exist in the Mean Green ecosystem and thrive in the Mean Green ecosystem.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you were thinking about those things in connection. I don't necessarily know where to go. It's complicated. I also am feeling like maybe I shouldn't be doing this. So those challenges can really amplify themselves. I feel like a lot of times when I talk to people who don't work with adult learners, they're surprised and maybe disbelieving that they have the highest numbers of imposter syndrome coming back to university. But when you think through it, it
Mhm.
kind of makes sense. So this is a little bit about what you talked about in terms of understanding that challenge and then thinking about, how do you address it?
Yeah, for sure. And so many of the adult learners that are coming back to a university, especially those coming into completion degrees, have experiences with higher ed from the past, sometimes 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah,
and they're not all positive,
right.
right? They're coming back with some higher ed trauma. They're coming back with, feeling like a failure from their first time around. And so, a lot of those things I say all the time, like there's 40 million learners in the United States with some college credit and no degree, and that's a failure on our part as the university. And so, for us, we want to make sure that we're putting all of the guardrails in place for our students so that, when they're coming back with this baggage that they're bringing with them from previous experiences, we're able to help them carry that forward to the graduation stage.
Yeah. Thinking about the whole student and how do you really see
Yeah.
from a full
Hmm.
perspective. I absolutely love that. Well, so we were very lucky to meet you and get an opportunity to partner with you. And so I know that out of that came, at least from a starting point, we started with a smaller number of users, but tell us about the virtual community that you built. Um, I'll touch on this quickly and then I'll hand it over to you. But I think our main focus was really around building a peer community, a student success community. And the point I always like to emphasize is that last one, which is it has to be a safe space where people can come to find these answers and seek advice. But when you implemented it, what was your vision of what this space was going to accomplish for you?
Hmm. So when we launched, we were coming from Slack. So we had been utilizing Slack as a platform for conversation. And I tell people all the time, Slack was fine, and that's it. It was a place for students to talk, but there wasn't a lot of like meaningful information sharing that was happening. And so, one of the things that we were looking for as we were looking to move away from Slack was, opportunities for evergreen information to be on the platform. You know, our advisors are answering the same question 40, 50, 60 times a day, right? And so
Right.
instead of our advisors getting 50 of the same email, a student can go to the Inscribe Talent to Talent platform and type in, if I want to know about scheduling a meeting with my advisor, I can type that in the search bar and I can get posts from other students or staff members who with instructions for how to do that. So it's Slack was not searchable at all. So if there was anything there, they would never know it. It was whatever the last thing that was said. That's what you have on your screen. And so one of the big things that really stood out to me about Inscribe is, I want a place to build community, but as we were talking about that equity building piece with online students versus students who are here in Denton, they need access to that sort of information easy and at their fingertips, and this gives them that.
Yeah.
And then we've also, it's been a great kind of social connection place. The photo sharing is great. We love, we did like Halloween costumes and pets and, things like that. And those are just fun things to see from other students and just to, know that they all have lives outside of the coursework that they're doing together and kind of this is their meeting space.
100%. And that multiple purpose or value prop of a community, I think sometimes people focus in on one thing. Like I want it to be a social space where people can connect, which absolutely that's one of its goals. But don't forget, it's also a place to get answers. It also can be, if done correctly, a knowledge repository where you're gaining efficiencies and creating more equitable access to information. So it's great that you thought about all those components coming in. And I think we have some examples of the fun posts that you guys did coming up. So I was like, the pet one is my favorite. So stay tuned.
Yes, me too.
But so tell us a little bit about, what you designed, the students that you initially launched to, like what was the shape of the pilot, so to speak?
Yeah. So I work very closely with our two fully online degrees that are in partnership with Coursera, the Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences, the BAAS, and the Bachelor of Science in General Business, the BSGB. And with those two programs, we are specifically recruiting folks who are looking for a completion degree, who are looking for that last, mile and a half or whatever it is to get them to that graduation stage. So we decided to pilot with those two programs. So a little over 1,000 online students in those two degrees. We launched at the beginning of the fall semester last year after having worked very closely with colleagues at Indiana University who have a successful Inscribe platform working for them. We work together. So my division, the digital strategy and innovation team, worked with our planning team and our division of student affairs to really kind of pick out what we wanted to accomplish, to set the goals, to build out a community that made the most sense for that population. With that launch, then we had a little over 850 active members. So those are folks who are reading posts, who were, interacting and liking and commenting and all of that. So, we were thrilled with that. We did kind of an initial launch and then realized we needed a little bit different organization, and that's why we do pilots. So we did kind of a redesign of the community and a relaunch, and that worked really well for the rest of the year in terms of how we organized the channels and how students were kind of driven to engagement.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that is a great active member number. 87% of your students being active in the community is something that they're not required to go. This was totally voluntary to go in there and participate. So that's a testament also to the work that you guys did in your launch process. And I know you had some goals. So, what did you want to see? What did success look like for you coming out of this?
Yeah. Really for us, we, obviously retention is always top of mind for, I think, every university in the world. We want to make sure that we, again, are getting students to that finish line. If we're not, that's something that we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and answer for. And so, that was a big kind of measuring stick that we used here. If we can encourage community, if we can encourage connection among students and between students in the university, can we increase retention? We wanted to provide a space for peers to connect with one another and to, really kind of, I say to my team all the time, like, I want our students to find their challenge in the classroom, not in doing business with the university and not in trying to navigate all of the offices and, this office and that office and where do I go to do this? That is unnecessarily confusing for a lot of students. And so if we can utilize this platform to simplify that for them, then that's a win for us. And then I think the final thing is, I was thinking a lot about our students and do they consider themselves to be mean green? I mean, we are, not one of the national football leaders, all of that. But so are our alumni, are our students that are currently enrolled in programs that are at a distance thinking like, this is my alma mater. This is, I am proud to be mean green. And, we couldn't really get to a fully 100% positive answer on that. And so, looking at how can we increase that that feeling of community and connectedness to the mean green spirit, and that this was kind of where we landed.
That's amazing. And that I imagine will have not just short-term positive impact for that student to feel that connection, but as alumni, as they leave and like maintaining that relationship with them is so much stronger when they feel like they're part of that ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be a fun thing to measure in addition, but down the line.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at it. I think, great setup. We know where we're going. Let's take a look at what you guys actually built here. So you launched your virtual student community. Maybe just give us a few highlights of what we're looking at here on the page.
Yeah, so the top section there are the channels that we set up for the launch with the BAAS and the BSGB. The commons area, we kind of consider that like the hallway outside of a classroom or a lunch table over in the student union, right? Those are not really connection points that online students get to have. And so that's how we envisioned the commons area. Academics is kind of like the library. It's the classroom. It's, where you can go to say like, hey, I'm trying this math problem and I keep getting the answer wrong. Someone help me. The interest groups piece is we do a lot with students who are parents, students who are veterans, students who are XYZ, right? And so this is kind of where all of that information lives. And then for the learning support channel, we connected them with tutoring, with math help, with the writing center. We were looking at calendars across campus, like where can a student go for help and support? Because early on, before Inscribe, we were finding students didn't know that these resources were available to them as online students. They thought, oh, those are just for on-campus students who can walk over to the Learning Center. But it's so important that they know that, yes, if you need help, those resources are absolutely available to you. So, we created that space as well. We had students, asking for learning support in that space between each other as well. And then the student life channel was managed by our Division of Student Affairs. So all of the events that they do Those were all kind of posted there as events. Students could, join streaming events. They've really been working on doing our first week of classes experience
Yeah, yeah.
virtually as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're trying to, working with student affairs has been great. They're really thinking outside of the box on how we can get learners to, um, engage in traditional campus type things. So we do a like kind of variety show sort of thing every year called Yell Like Hell. And that has traditionally been only for people who can go over to the Coliseum and sit in a chair and watch it happen and be there. This year we streamed it and we were able to do that through Inscribe, and that was excellent. We were able to, get students involved that wouldn't traditionally be a part of that. So, those sort of things are really great for sure.
That's
And
awesome.
I
Oh,
I
good.
see
I
a
saw a question.
question.
I was just gonna say, to your point earlier, like,
Hmm.
just look at this page. It is so simple. It is so clear. When I come in as a student, I know exactly where to go. And I get that, like, we all have web pages. I would challenge anyone on this webinar to show me their web page that is as simple and easy to understand as this, and that actually has a two-way dialogue happening behind it. So you guys did such a nice job with your implementation and design. I think, was
Yeah.
there a question coming in, Danielle?
Yeah. How much control do you have over the design and layout of that landing page? I felt like it was a lot. I mean, as owners of the community, we were able to do a lot of things. We created all of the graphics. They put in our logo and made it green. And really, any request we sent your way, Jeannie was like, "Yeah, let's figure this out. Let's make it happen." So, we were able to then like create the important information section and where we're, pinning posts. And then we were able to, kind of decide what this homepage looked like and what posts landed in each of the sections on this homepage so that if a student logs in and this is all they see, they're seeing the most important things that they need to see from the community. Um, and each week we met as moderators to determine, okay, what needs to be pinned this week? What posts do we need to be making? There's an ambassador meeting this week. What do we need to talk to them about starting in the community? So, we were, pretty integrated in the design and curation of this page and all of the channel pages as well.
Right. I'm glad that you felt that way. And shout out to Jeannie. She is one of our lead customer success. She always gets a shout out. I feel like in every webinar.
Yes.
So quick shout out to Jeannie. But I'm glad that you felt that way because honestly, our vision is that the community should be an extension of your brand and your student experience. Like, we don't want it to feel like a separate space that students are being shuffled off to. So I don't think we have an example here, but integration is also really important. This experience is integrated into the places where, is this LMS integrated? Is that how students were coming to it?
Yes.
Integrated
Yeah, through
into this?
Canvas.
Yeah. And really wanted to have the look, feel, and brand, as I said before, of your institution. So I'm glad that loved. Another shout out for Jeannie in the chat.
Yeah.
So I know we always say the heart of the platform is really the conversations area. So tell us a little bit about that, and then also talk to us about chat, because you mentioned you came over from Slack. You guys had a very interesting transition and we got to partner with you on this. So let the audience know a little bit about how that worked.
Yeah. So first off, I've worked with a lot of ed tech companies, and the fact that we went to Inscribe and said, hey, it would be really cool if there was a chat feature. Like, we would make really great use of that. And then like 6 months later, it was launched and ready to go. And like, that's unheard of. So major kudos for that. But that was one thing we heard from our students when we launched with Inscribe is they missed that kind of like DM type feature from Slack. And so, you know, this chat feature has been great. Students are able to create like working groups there. So if they're assigned to a group project, they can create group project space. You see their they've started class chats where, you know, they're adding everyone that's enrolled in their class here so that they can talk specifically about the course, and that kind of keeps the rest of the area, the conversations area, a little cleaner
Yeah.
because you know, they've moved that into a more private space where, you know, they decide who's in there, or it can also be searchable. Um, but only the people who want that information are inside of that chat. And so you know, that makes it really easy for us to manage all of the rest of it, because then the students are responsible for their chats. It also gives students an opportunity to chat directly to folks from the university, faculty, staff. You know, there's a lot of us who are in here serving as moderators and facilitators, and the chat gives them that opportunity to, you know, reach out to their advisor and ask a question, or you know, to reach out to someone in their class and be like, hey, I saw your post in Canvas on this, and I had some questions. You know, it really just kind of extends the classroom and extends those relationships. You know, we can also do like live stream kind of chats where, you know, if the football team is playing, we can create a chat there for the football game, and, you know, we can all watch the football game together. You know, there are a lot of possibilities with chat that we're really just now kind of exploring. We're actually kind of rolling out a larger launch in 2 weeks. I'm so
Yes,
excited.
I know. So exciting.
Yeah, so we're rolling out to half of campus in 2 weeks, which will be great. And you know, with that, we're really excited to see how the chat feature really kind of folds into all of the other pieces of um, you know, the conversations and everything. And I think it's going to be great. I think we're, you know, we've got a great kind of baseline of students who have experience with it from the BAAS and BSGB. Then we're adding in more folks, and I think it'll be excellent.
Awesome. Yeah. So that was a really fun project, and I'm glad it worked well for you guys. Oh, we had a quick question about,
yeah,
yeah.
couple of chat questions in here. So actually these questions are the same. So how does moderation for chat work? Who's monitoring the chat?
So here's one of the things that we've found in terms of moderation. You know, we've got mods in all of the channels. And in terms of what we have found, like for the most part, students are going to include us if they have a question for us. Otherwise, they know we're there and we can see everything. Like, you know, we don't necessarily have to babysit every little thing, but a student is going to reach out to us if there's an issue that we need to look into. And, you know, we're not necessarily babysitters, but we do make sure that, you know, community rules aren't being violated, and you know, students kind of have a reporting structure for that in terms of reaching out to us. um, and then you know, largely the moderation, I see the big brother type question here. I don't see it as big brothery, because we're not just watching, we're not lurkers. We are engaging as well. And so, you know, it's not like, oh, they're here but they're silent. And you know, like we are engaging in the community. So so it's not really big brothery. We're not like, you know, shaming them if they're, you know, talking about struggles or anything like that. But, you know, we are able to engage with them and to have conversations and join the conversations that are happening among students, which I think adds to that community rather than making it feel like we're, you know, in a watchtower kind of checking for violations. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah. Well, and you guys have done a really nice job setting the culture of your community, just to that point there. And I know we don't have it up, but there was a couple examples of students that they would come in and complain in the community. So like, this thing is going on and I'm annoyed about it. And the response wasn't, you may not ever complain in our community. It was like a constructive conversation with that student about why they were struggling. And that also just reinforces the trust of the space, you know, like you're letting students be students in here as long as they're appropriate, as long as they're following the community norms. So that was, but that's a great question. And I think, you know, the idea that you're not anonymous, you know, the school can see what you're doing, just causes students to bring their best professional self to these spaces in a way that really don't see any kind of bad behavior happening across the communities we work with.
And it's a great learning experience for students too. Like we had one of the students who made some complainy posts reach out to me via email and ask if I would remove them because he's realizing he's got a larger digital footprint than he thought. And you know, and nothing was bad in what he shared. You know, it was constructive and it was an important, you know, voice in the conversation. But you know, I think it's important that students learn that, you know, what you put into the world matters. And so, you know, having those conversations with students and, you know, allowing them an ability to be heard is super important as well.
Yeah, and to do it in like a semi-private space where you do have the luxury of messaging someone and say like, hey, can we just take that down? I made a mistake. Students can take it down if they want to, but
yeah. There's a question in the chat about posting anonymously. Can students do that?
They can, but we can see who posted it. So they can post anonymously to other students, but we still see who it was. So, you know, if they're going to go post anonymously and say a lot of slanderous things, the moderators know who it is. So we're able to monitor things in that way.
Yeah, and the student knows that when they
do you feel like that lessens their ability to share real and valuable info or feedback? That's another question from the chat.
I do not feel that way. I mean, we got some pretty real feedback. They're not shy about telling you what they think.
But it is constructive. It's not like I'm going in here just to complain. It was like valid concerns that you could have a dialogue about and potentially have some like positive resolution. And then for your other students to see that is so awesome, right? To see that you handled it that way.
Yeah, and our team met with a couple of those folks too. And, you know, it just gives them like, I feel like I matter here because they read, you know, my complaint and then met with me to hear more and then change things, you know. And I think while that it's not going to go that way every single time where their complaint is going to be answered with changes, but you know, I think it is important that we let our students know that their voice does matter and that we're here, especially our online students, where you know they're not here where they can't, you know, walk into the president's office and have a conversation, you know, but they can send me a message and I can have a conversation with them and I can, you know, elevate their need if necessary. And I think that is really impactful for a lot of students.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, keep them coming, Danielle, as they
have one more.
Okay.
So Sam, I don't know exactly how your instance is set up. I know we mentioned integrating into the LMS, but is every account attached to a university email address or how are we accessing it?
Yeah, so we set up an SSO through the university email addresses. So any student, so I said we're you know rolling out to 50% of the campus starting in 2 weeks. However, that 50% of the campus has a big ol' asterisk next to it because anybody with a UNT email address can get in through the SSO, and that is our natural growth strategy. That's what I'm telling people. Like, if they find out about it, they're excited about it, and they want in, I'm not going to stop them. And so that has been kind of so we have used the email address, and then kind of on the back end, we can see all of the email addresses that are attached to the people. So if they change their name or whatever, we still know who they are inside of the university's identification system.
Awesome. Give us a quick, like you mentioned this a little earlier, but just give us a second on live sessions in the platform and how you are leveraging those as part of the community.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of live sessions. As you can see here, all kinds of workshops, all kinds of, just opportunities for connection. We've done a lot of virtual study sessions. There's research out that like if you're doing something with another person, you are way more likely to like focus and so what we've done is we just open a Zoom room and students come and they have on their music or whatever, they're on mute but they're on camera and they're just studying in the same place with each other. They don't have to talk at all. But that it's a motivating thing to do something with another person. Like on TikTok all the time, there's these cleaning videos and like I watch someone clean their house and then I'm motivated to go clean my house. So I think there's something to that. And what's great about those is when an event is happening live, there's a button on the Inscribe platform that they can join directly from the platform. So if they're on platform, looking through posts and they, see that there's an event happening, it's super easy for them to get to that event from the Inscribe page. It'll just launch it directly there. They can join and be a part of that very easily, which is wonderful.
Yeah, that combination of synchronous and asynchronous, it can be really powerful for online learners as well and adult learners.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to have you talk about this, but I think we're going to talk about it again in another section. So in the interest of time, we'll circle back to resources and how you're using those. We also touched a little bit on this, but yeah, tell us, like, summarize for us what's going on in here. And then I think we're going to look at some examples of posts from the community so we can actually see some stuff.
Yeah. So, there's all kinds of questions in there, be it about technology that students are using or course questions, things like that. We have students asking about like book, like, hey, I have this book, I'm done with the class, does anybody want it? So those sort of things are happening in the community, which is important. There's social posts like Spider-Man movies were a topic of conversation. There's really everything there, but it also gives us a great opportunity we have a team of student ambassadors that apply each year to be a part of the ambassador team. And then they meet with a team of staff monthly, and they're kind of, given information, and we kind of plan out the month of like, what things are we going to do in the community or for prospective students to, increase this value of connection. And so our ambassador team is in here all the time. They're, answering questions. They're, starting conversations. They're, providing, sharing their own struggles. Like, hey, I'm in this class and it's kicking my butt. Help, like, and all of that is so important. It adds to the conversation for sure. Another thing that we saw is one of my favorite weekends of the year is commencement weekend. And we do have a lot of our online students will travel to Denton for commencement, or they'll take part in our virtual commencement. And so with that, there's a lot of like planning for that. We do a reception for them, which for a lot of our students is the first time they've met each other in person. And that's really exciting to be able to have that. But then they plan like happy hours and things like that to do while they're in Denton as well, which is great. So this just allows them a space to connect to one another when, they're not asking for phone numbers in classes, right? So this gives them that opportunity.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think there was a quick question in the chat about, do you compensate your student ambassadors?
We don't. It is a volunteer position. We do commencement cords for ambassadors. And then we kind of talk to them about how they include that on their resume. We have more applications than we have slots. So students are really excited about giving back to the program. We generally ask in their, after they've been in the program for at least a semester, they can apply. And so we've got a lot of students that are interested in giving back to the program that is helping them get to the finish line.
You're probably going to have even more now. You're upping your ambassador applications through the community. You're going to have more than you can manage. Before we jump into the examples, I'll answer Brian's question from the chat really quickly. Yes, so in the case of UNT, the focus was really on a large community bringing all the students together, but Inscribe can also be deployed in a more narrow fashion, for example, a community around a specific course, or maybe bringing just your college algebra students together in a community. So there are different sort of use cases and ways to slice and dice that space. So Brian, if you want more information, just reach out and we can talk a little bit about your specific scenario.
There's an additional question. I don't know if
sorry.
We answered this one yet. Can students edit or delete their own post?
Yes, they can.
We covered that one.
They can actually edit and delete anything that they have created in the platform. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, let's look at some fun examples. So we don't have to spend a ton of time, but just some talk us through what you were seeing in the community, and whether it was kind of meeting the qualitative goals that you had for the space.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, when I saw this post come up, I got goosebumps because I love how much our students root for each other. I think for a lot of people, like you said earlier, Katie, adult learners don't want this. They just want to take their classes, get their degree, and be done. And I don't think that's true. I think there is an element to that, but I think it's because they don't want to do what a traditionally aged college student is doing. But they do still want the connection. They do still want that, someone in their corner is rooting for them. And that's what we got from this post, and I love it. And I think it is just such a great testament to the value of providing this space for students.
Yeah, 100%. And as they move on, these relationships could be things that they maintain. They're building their network, right? They're building their social capital, even if they're learning at a distance and not able to be on campus. I know there were some more practical sides of this. You mentioned people selling textbooks, which I think is very common, or reusing textbooks. Did you see a good value in that, like students helping students around more practical and tactical things?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love, when students are like, do we use this book a lot? Because if we don't use it a lot, I'm going to get the digital copy. But if I need to read every word, then I want the hard copy. And that's, I love that sort of thing where, they're really providing information for one another. They're, a lot of them are like, okay, so here's the courses that I think I'm going to take this semester. Has anyone taken these? What is the load like? If I take these classes together, can I still work my full-time job? And so I think that piece of time management and, getting the crowdsourced information is really helpful for students as they're just trying to figure out their path through the degree program.
And advice you're never going to get from a faculty member, right?
No,
here to give you that deep insight into what is going on there. But this is just my favorite post because I happen to be an animal and dog lover. But
yes,
I thought it was a nice reflection of sort of the fun and silly side of the community.
I love it. Yep.
Throw your own dog there. I was hoping there'd be a parakeet or a giraffe. Things were more traditional with our dog and cat lover. And this is just a sample of the number of responses they got from this post. So never underestimate the power of pets to bring people together.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
And this is one that we were touching on before, but great social space. Students are helping students, but it's also a really important place for your team to share information and activities. So how's that worked for you guys?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of different things here. We do what we can to build connection among students. And so, for us to be able to encourage them. They know our names, you know, when they show up for graduation. If they don't know, you know, anyone else on the stage, they know us. They, you know, and that's important that, you know, they have that connection. And when they show up on campus, they have someone who's going to greet them. Like one day, a few weeks ago, my team offices in a different building, and they messaged me and said, a student just stopped by and to say hello. And I'm like, that's awesome, you know. I mean, and that sort of thing wouldn't have happened without this, because they wouldn't know who they were stopping by to see,
Right.
you know. So this is so important. We do a podcast as well. I have an amazing coach on our team who has created the Scrappy Start podcast with information for student success. And with that, he's done great work to share that podcast in the Inscribe community, and get students listening and engaging in that way. You know, just another way for them to feel cared for by the
Yeah.
university.
Yeah, and there's probably, I think a lot of institutions will say this, where there's all kinds of cool things that individual people or groups are doing for students, but they're so spread out and disparate that the value gets lost. So just like bringing them together in this shared space amplifies that so much. Well, I feel like we buried the lead now. So why don't we talk about, we did all this great stuff. Um, did it work? So we talked about the qualitative impacts, which I think were clear in those, but let's talk about the numbers as well. So talk to us
Mhm.
about what you saw happen with retention.
Yeah, so the way we're measuring this here is really persistence, right? So folks who were enrolled in spring and then re-enrolled in fall. In fall 22, that number, this is pre-inscribed, that number was about 72%. And then in fall 23, after we had started the community and started, you know, moving things, it was 85%. So, you know, those numbers alone are impactful for us, to see that we've got students who are sticking around, students who are, you know, engaged in re-enrolling. You know, we're putting reminders in the community of, you know, re-enroll today. You don't have to pay until classes start. That's a big one. We get that confused all the time. And so they wait and wait. But we also saw, you know, this is a little more anecdotal, but our advisors noticed that they were not quite so slammed the last 2 weeks before school started, because students were enrolling earlier in the term, because
Wow.
we were able to send out more reminders. We were able to, you know, kind of address those misconceptions of, you know, you don't have to pay when you register, and, you know, you don't have to have the money in your pocket. You don't have to, you know, have all of these decisions made, but you can register today. So that was a huge help for our advising team as well, which, as I'm sure we all know and everybody experiences, advisors loads are bananas to, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so for us to be able to spread that out a little more was hugely impactful. You know, we did the live session views. I love. I mean, we've got folks who are really seeing the impact of, you know, all of the work that our student affairs group is doing, our learning center is doing, to ensure that engagement opportunities provided to students on campus are also provided to students online. And, you know, this is so much better of a way to share that information than by emailing a link that is going to get ignored. So, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
That's
for
wonderful.
sure.
And I assume, you know, the retention numbers, awesome for student outcomes, great for efficiency, and then also like economically valuable for the institution to have the returning rooms. Nice to be able to
Yeah.
have a win-win-win across all sides of the institution. All right, we have a few minutes left,
Yep.
and I don't know if we have more questions in the chat, Danielle.
We do have a couple of questions. So let's talk a little bit about implementation and the work that Inscribe does and providing best practices. The question is, do you set up rooms with preset topics for students to engage around?
So sort of.
Yes, and
Yeah. So one of the things that we've kind of been going back and forth on, especially with our larger rollout coming, is we don't want to put so much into a channel that students don't think the channel is theirs.
yeah,
You know, we want them when they log in to know like, oh, this is my space to own. And so while we've talked about, you know, that first week, how we want to engage and start conversations, our hope is that students will get into that space and immediately take ownership of it. And, you know, being that we have the pilot audience that is, you know, a fairly large portion of the students that are coming in, that they know to do that already. And, you know, we're building training programs, we're building a microsite, we're doing all kinds of things to make sure that students have the information for what they're to do in this space. And then, you know, we'll seed a little bit, but for the most part, I want a student to log in there and know that that is their space to start conversations and to engage.
right. Less is more sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Was there another?
Does UNT have any continuing ed courses, and have you utilized Inscribe for them?
We do, and we have not yet. I also manage our continuing ed department for UNT, and so with that, it's kind of a wide array of learners that we have coming to us. It's not always the same people, and so and we're really just kind of building up that unit at UNT. So we have not got to that point yet, but it's definitely something in the back of my mind of is there a way that we could increase utilization of our continuing ed courses by providing some level of community?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Mhm.
We're right at the top of the hour, Katie, so if we can.
Are we? Okay. Well, give us like a 1 minute snippet of what you already talked a little bit about. So give us 1 minute snippet of what's coming next.
Yeah.
Before we lose everyone.
Yeah, so we are launching to about 25,000 students and pulling in colleges. So the channels that you saw in one of the earlier slides have been redesigned. We are going to add students automatically into their college that's tied to their program plan in PeopleSoft. And then they'll have an opportunity to join, you know, if they're in honors college, they can join that. There are libraries channels that they'll be able to join. So we're going to be a little bit more intentional about college ownership in the space as well. We've done trainings with the moderators that each college has identified, and we will continue to do that. And you know, I think it'll be a great rollout. We put together a committee early in the spring to start kind of planning for that rollout. So the committee has been working really hard. We've brought in a lot of different people to, you know, help us from the IT side to, you know, the PeopleSoft connection and Canvas and all of that. So you know, I think the rollout in 2 weeks is going to go great. I was meeting with my boss this morning talking about it, and I told him I'm not really worried about it. I think it's going to be fine.
Awesome.
You know?
Us either. We're super
Yeah.
excited. That'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know we're getting right up to the top of the hour. So first of all, Sam, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. I always love talking with you and excited for
Thanks.
we're going to do the same thing at some conferences and